Hello, my name's Daniel and it's my privilege to be the minister here at Warragul Anglican Church. We've been travelling with Jesus through the middle of Luke's Gospel for the last several weeks as he heads towards the cross. And Jesus has been teaching us about lots of things, how to live as disciples on our own journey of life. He's been teaching us about mission, about how to pray, about how to use our money. And today he's teaching us how to wait, which is a very important skill. If you're waiting for something, that can have a big impact on your life. So say you're waiting for news about whether you're going to get a new job that you're looking for, or a house that you're going to live in that might be some distance away. During that waiting period, life is different. You're not likely to go off on holidays while you're waiting for something like that. You're in preparation mode, even if you're waiting for a long time. So what does Jesus say we're waiting for? Well, the answer is in the first of the two parables that Jesus tells us in our reading from Luke. The first parable is a very realistic scene to Jesus' hearers. From everyday life. Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning like servants, waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet. Why? So that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. That was the servant's job. They were supposed to be waiting, ready for the master's return. Of course, the master, like us if we go out, didn't always know exactly what time he would be back. You know, his team might win. He might go out for drinks. He might get into a long conversation. But the servant's job is to stay ready. Whether it's the middle of the night, whether it's towards daybreak, it says it'll be good for that servant who's ready for his master. And Jesus applies this to his disciples in verse 40. You also must be ready because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. That's what they're waiting for the Son of Man to come. What does this mean? Well, the title that we most commonly use for Jesus is Christ, which means Messiah. But Jesus, in his own teaching, publicly, he never called himself the Messiah, not to the crowds, not as a title that he promoted. Instead, he called himself the Son of Man. Why did he do this? Well, there may have been a few reasons. First, it was a helpfully vague thing to call himself. So in his native Aramaic, it could just be a way of saying a man. If you know C.S. Lewis, Narnia, son of Adam, daughter of Eve, that kind of thing, a person. So the authorities couldn't accuse him of claiming to be the Messiah, making a big deal about himself. But secondly, for those paying attention and who knew their Bibles, it was also an echo of an apocalyptic vision, an end times vision in the Bible, in the book of Daniel. And in chapter 7, Daniel says, he's talking about a vision that he's had. He says, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days, that's God, and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. An extraordinary, mysterious thing for Daniel to see when applied to a human being. And Jesus is saying he is this ruling, eternal Son of Man figure. Later in chapter 17, he'll tell his disciples, the time is coming when you will long to see one of the days of the Son of Man, but you will not see it. So what he's doing is casting ahead beyond his death and resurrection and ascension to beyond the early church, right up to today. The reason we need to wait is because of the core belief of Christianity that Jesus will return. The Son of Man will come in glory. We refer to this event in lots of ways. The second coming, Judgment Day, the new creation. And there are lots of things we would love to know about it in detail. But Jesus says he doesn't give us all the details we would like to have. His message for us is be ready for it. Why? Why is it so important to be ready? Well, if we move to Jesus' second parable, we see that one reason it's important is that the Son of Man, when he comes, will bring judgment. Now, saying we believe in the second coming out there in the world, that might make people laugh at you. But saying that you believe that they and we actually deserve judgment and the Son of Man will bring judgment, well, that might even make them angry at you. But in fact, if we look closely at this second parable, we'll see judgment is a good thing, because without judgment, there's no justice. Again, second parable, a scene from first century life, but this time, the master has appointed one of his servants manager over all his other servants to provide food for them on the master's behalf. And Jesus does something quite unusual among his parables. He gives multiple scenarios. It's like a choose your own adventure. First scenario is that the manager does his job faithfully, and the result is like the first parable. It'll be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. The second scenario is the complete opposite. Suppose the servant says to himself, my master is taking a long time in coming. Now, this is the first mistake of the servant in this scenario. Who is he to say whether his master is taking a long time coming? It's different to the first parable. The first one, at least there was an expectation, well, he'll be back tonight. But in this parable, there's no indication from the master how long he'll be away at all. The servant has made up his own mind. He's decided for himself. The master's taking a long time. Maybe he's delayed indefinitely. Maybe he isn't returning at all. And I think that's a word to us as we hold on to Jesus' promise to return. While he said that 2,000 years ago, he didn't put a deadline on that promise. While we would love to know, and many people have claimed to know what the end of the world, Judgment Day, entails, we don't. In fact, Jesus said, no one knows when this will be but the Father. So this isn't about waiting 1 year or 1 decade. While Jesus could return any time, we also need to be prepared to wait faithfully our whole lives, and even to die waiting. So that at the end, like it says in 2 Timothy, we can know we have fought the good fight. We've finished the race. We've kept the faith. We have to be careful not to confuse our perception of a long time with God's. But back to this servant. His unexamined belief that his master is taking a long time becomes an excuse. He then begins to beat the other servants, both men and women, and to eat and drink and get drunk. So he starts abusing his position as manager for his own power and pleasure. And it's about this servant that Jesus says his master will come when he doesn't expect and will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. 2 things to note about this picture of judgment Jesus gives. Gruesome as it is, it wasn't as unrealistic in that day as we might think. That manager was a slave of the master. The master owned him. And that put him outside the court system. Slave owners could and did take justice into their own hands against their slaves, sometimes brutally. Now, it's unclear what this cutting him to pieces means. It could be cutting off a hand or something horrible like that. It could be putting the slave to death. It's a parable. It's not a literal description of what God's judgment will be like. But we can see that the spiritual equivalent also can't be good. Second, who is this aimed at? Well, if you follow Jesus' teaching for a bit, what does it remind you of? Is he warning his disciples, his followers, saying, watch out, if you slip up, this will happen to you? I think it sounds more like the words he directs to people like the rulers and the Pharisees and the greedy and the teachers of the law. He condemns them for having been given heaps, given authority, given teaching, given wealth, given the opportunity to help people, help God's suffering people, but they only, as he says at one point, persist in heaping up more burdens on people. They are misusing what they've been given, their position. Now, to the extent that we've been given those things, education in God's ways, authority, wealth, an opportunity to help people, well, we too should hear this warning. But we should also remember this violent judgment is directed at someone who violently abused his privilege for his own benefit. And it may be that what he deserves in this parable is actually closer to what many people who find the Christian teaching about judgment offensive might think certain people in society, certain perpetrators deserve, and that they would hand similar sentences to them themselves. That's scenario 2. But there's a third ending that Jesus gives to this parable. Verse 48. The verse before, I'll paraphrase. The one who knows what his master requires and doesn't do it will be beaten with many blows. But verse 48, the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. People often ask, if we can only be saved through Jesus, what does that mean for people who've never heard of him? And this, I think, this verse is the closest answer there is in the Bible. Jesus is teaching nuanced judgment. Those who should have known and acted better, they will be judged more harshly, but those who acted ignorantly will be judged more softly. When the Son of Man comes to judge, he will take all this into account. What people knew, their circumstances in life, he will judge rightly. This is very different to what we're used to, human judgment. Human judgment's fallible, imperfect. Just this week, there was news of a woman who had her conviction overturned after 20 years in prison. On the other hand, there are many people who commit terrible crimes, and for various reasons, they get away with it. Justice is not done. But Jesus is saying when he comes, he will fix all injustices. His judgment will be proportionate. It will be right. It will be just. People will get what they deserve and no more. And when you think about it, that's really the only hope for true, lasting justice. And that's why the Christian belief in the final judgment is in fact good news for everyone who longs for justice in the world. So, are you awake? Are you dressed, ready for service with your lamp burning? Are you ready to open the door for him? If we imagine awaking at the resurrection of the dead and appearing before the Son of Man, the judge, or if we imagine the day he describes, even in our lifetime, the Son of Man coming like a thief in the night, the judge who sees all, knows all, who will deal out perfect justice. We may know the Master's will, but will we be able to say, well, we've done it, we've done enough? How can we possibly be ready for a day like that? When will it feel like we've done enough of what our master has asked us to do? What does it mean to be ready? One brief practical comment. While Jesus' parables, they use everyday situations to make a spiritual point, Jesus is also, I think, his use of parables shows that he's concerned about how we live our everyday lives in our interactions with people in the church, outside the church. And this is especially true in Luke's gospel. And while we thankfully don't have slaves today, the way a good master treated their slaves in Jesus' teaching can tell us a lot about how Jesus would have employers treat their employees today. That's the closest equivalent to the biblical master-slave relationship. And so, if you're someone with authority, an employer, a manager, a principal, a leader in any other way, professionally, in volunteer capacity, well, I think part of doing your master's will is extending his care and respect to those who work for you. You are, in fact, there to serve them. You come at it with a very different philosophy of why you're doing what you do than many in the world. Being a good employer is part of your worship. But of course, even there, we often make mistakes, which is a reminder of the challenge of what it means to be spiritually ready for that day. And it can feel like an impossible task, like there's no hope of being ready for the day of judgment. But if that's how we feel, we've misunderstood Jesus' teaching. That line of thinking that we must pull ourselves together, we must obey God's laws, make sure he doesn't find any fault with us. That's Pharisaical thinking. And the Pharisees tried harder than anyone, yet Jesus said they were not ready at all. Who did he say was ready? Well, a couple of figures over the last few weeks we've seen. Mary, who sat and learned from Jesus, rather than being anxious and busy, even trying to serve Jesus. Mary was ready. Or those who know that they are needy and humble, saying, "Your will be done," and who ask and seek and knock. They are ready. Or if we look ahead in Luke, some things we'll be hearing about in the next few weeks. It's the prodigal son who returns to his father, though he can't repay him. He's ready. Or it's the tax collector in the temple who could not even look up to heaven but beat his breast and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." Jesus said he was ready, not the proud man. Or it's the leper who came back and thanked Jesus for healing him, was grateful. Or it's the little children. All these people, Jesus says they are the ones who are ready. It's not the people who've got it all together. It's the people who know they don't deserve any reward from God, but they long for him and they eagerly await him. And this truth is there in plain sight for us in today's passage too. In fact, the bits about judgment, though they leap out at us, they are in fact side notes in this passage. This passage is overwhelmingly positive about the day when the Son of Man returns. Listen to how Jesus describes that day. He says it'll be good for those servants whose master finds them watching. It'll be good for them whose master finds them ready. The master puts the faithful and wise manager in charge of his servants. That's a responsibility. He says it'll be good for that servant. He'll put him in charge of all his possessions. And he reminds us, you have been given much. You have been entrusted with much. The overwhelming picture that Jesus paints is of a day that is something to look forward to. And in fact, it's just the continuation of God's generosity that he's already lavished on us. How can this be? How is it that the day of judgment can be something to be joyful about? Well, verse 37. It'll be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Truly, I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. mentioned that these parables are realistic pictures of first century life, but in this verse, Jesus breaks out of that completely. The master will come and dress himself and have them recline at the table, have the servant recline at the table and come and wait on them. Just think about that in a common sense kind of way. What master arriving home after a late night, worn out, would get changed into work clothes, seat their own slave at the table and prepare a meal for them? No master would do that. This is completely radical. This is Jesus, the Son of Man, coming on the clouds of glory from that vision in Daniel and saying he will serve us. He will be our servant. But when he does, he'll only be doing what he has always done. In Luke's account of the Last Supper, Jesus says, who's greater? The one who's at the table or the one who serves? Not the one who serves, but the one who is at the table. But I am among you as one who serves. And the next day he would serve them by going to the cross and being crucified. The one who comes to us as judge has nail marks in his hands by which he has bought us already. And so the challenge for us is not perfecting our obedience. It's in waiting humbly for the Master, making sure we don't drift from Jesus, but trusting him as Saviour and Lord every day for the rest of our lives. Remember how the Son of Man astonishingly came to serve you. Don't drift. Stay awake. Stay ready to open the door. It'll be good when he comes. He himself will dress himself to serve, have us recline at the table and wait on us. Let's pray. Our Master Christ, thank you that you came from the Father to live and die for us. Thank you that you came not to be served, but to serve and to give your life as a ransom for many. Thank you for the promise that when you return in glory, it will be good for us who wait eagerly for you. Help us to do your will as we wait, according to all you have generously entrusted us with. Amen.
We'll stand together and join in song.